I have spent the last 40 years listening to Earth. My whole pursuit and beginning when I was a graduate student in plant pathology because I had other plans on who I thought I was. And then I had this epiphany, my own transformation on my return to graduate school at Madison, where it was really quite by accident. And for a lot of people, that's what happens because we're so stubborn. I was not a good listener. I'm still not as good as I want to be today. But I came out of that thunderstorm experience basically saying, how can this happen? How can I be 27 years old and have never truly listened before? And I was absolutely convinced. So if I haven't been listening, then I was living someone else's life. Fortunately, 9 years later, I got a grant from the Lindbergh Foundation and everything really cascaded. My time had arrived, a Rolex Award, National Endowment for the Arts, and all of a sudden I went all the way in 2 years to receive an Emmy and had everybody coming to me, including Microsoft, Smithsonian, Nat Geo. But my pursuit, my personal pilgrimage has never changed. And really, when I do a gig for these big names, it's still kind of a day job because they have their own idea of what they want their product to sound like. But I was on my own journey. And so many of the projects and almost everything that we listen to today was not the result of a client, but it was the result of my own process of transformation. There are only three things. I'm going to make this real simple as possible. There are only three things I decided this morning that you need to know, and you can either write these down now or memorize them. You are what you hear. John Cage said that. You are what you hear. Okay. Another way of saying that is you echo your environment. And I view that as an inescapable fact. Okay. The second is that every sound has an emotion. I want to share an emotion that I get from a sound. I'm not sure it'll come through on this, but let's give it a try. Did it come through, Tanner? Anybody? This is 30-year-old vintage Japanese happiness. I keep this next to my toothbrush in the morning so I can get a good start to my day. And there are many other sounds with many other emotions. And then a real important thing to remember, especially as you design quiet travel, is that quiet is quieting. So what this means is that you actually have a pretty simple job if you're going to have your participants experience quiet and transformation. You just got to get them there and let quiet do the magic. And then, of course, you have to do a little troubleshooting because they're going to complain to you that they aren't quiet when they're in a quiet place. And I'll explain to you how to handle that because they can't be immediately. What is listening? Take a moment. I was engaged to a deaf woman for 3 years until we found out our worlds were too far apart. But even a deaf person can listen. She was a great listener. The common assumption about listening, and for anyone who thinks they're a good listener just because they get straight A's and perform in concert with a musical instrument or however they want to slice it up, that was me when I wasn't a good listener. That is something that's a very dangerous thought. I hope that every one of you will always know you can never be a good listener. You can only want to be a better listener. You cannot listen for something you haven't heard. So you can't focus your attention. When you're listening to music and you're focusing your attention, let's say on one instrument, that's not listening. That's controlled impairment. Okay, listening is what children do and what all wild animals do. Young children, we're all born listeners, and you simply open up and take it all in. Simply listen to the place. And when we listen to a place, our horizon immediately expands. And while you listen to a place, simply notice how you feel. All right? So we're going to open up this presentation with kind of a medley from planet Earth. We're going to hear the broad spectrum of what nature has to offer us. Today, none of these sounds are extinct. Today, from all over the globe. And as you listen to this medley of quiet travel destinations, notice how you feel. None of them were singing for our benefit, but we hear it as music. Okay? We hear it as music. It evokes a feeling inside of us. And that is the essential message, the pilgrimage that your participants embark on, is that Earth is our home. We evolved here. Bottom line. Very simple. Simplest thing. Sound is created by events. Huh? All right, that's the only way it happens. By an event. And the sound carries information. There's an envelope to the sound. So the very fact that you hear a sound, especially when it's familiar, you know, eyes open or closed, that I clapped my hands or rang a bell, you know all this. Well, events create this signature sound. When you truly listen, when you truly open up and understand that sound is created by events, the way we define quiet, the faint sounds, and more meaningful, they carry lots of information, the faint sounds do. And the large sounds, the loud sounds, have today in modern experience become noise. And the definition of noise is a loud, simple, not very meaningful sound that denies you access to the faint, meaningful sounds. You know, what are the big rocks in our travel planning? All right. And where do we begin our journey to listen? Well, we begin it where we are, wherever we are. We are where we are. Remember, we are what we hear, and we are where we are. Well, why do we want to travel to a quiet place? Certainly clarity. It's not as busy when we go downtown, for example. Not only do we have one loud event, we have 1,000 loud events. They're called cars, okay? And it's insurmountable. And quiet destinations are destinations of clarity, and they're are organic to our sensory data flow. And we often say peace and quiet in the same breath. Another benefit, you know, one thing that brings peace in my life is where I feel smart enough to handle the day. And 2 minutes of quiet time, well, is like phenomenal on how it increases your cognitive ability. You know, you're always as intelligent as you are, but you may not be able to show it. But in a quiet place, you can, and there's a lot of study with that, including quiet time in nature has been effective as drugs for the management of autism. You know, there's everything that shows the benefits of quiet, health-wise and well-being. I think for the transformative end of the reason why people are signing up to travel is to become aware, to connect with the real world and fill themselves up with new information that hasn't been edited, okay? We're going to take a little section. Our next piece is going to be a piece from Zabalo River Wilderness Quiet Park in the Ecuadorian Amazon. This is the home of the Kofan people who invited us to qualify them, to award them as a wilderness quiet park because they're people of the forest. Their population actually plummeted from 35,000 individuals until and to down to 300 individuals in the face of disease and foreign corporations, exploitation, and anthropologists had given them up to be extinct. when the chief emerged from the rainforest to claim his people's lands, and now they have land equivalent to Rocky Mountain National Park. And but even though they're sitting on millions of dollars in gold and petroleum, they don't want to sell it. That's not what they want. Is that they actually want to offer the quiet to the world and quiet-seeking travelers, because their needs are rather modest, except for the fact that they do need to patrol their borders to keep poachers out and foreign corporations that just come in anyway, because it is deep within the Ecuadorian Amazon. The question is how should I experience a quiet destination? And this is, it's not a long subject, but an important one, because it's not so much a what to do, it's more of a way of being. All right. Isn't a doing. This is a being. All right. And to acknowledge that we evolved to listen, that we were born listeners, and then we learned how to listen, controlled impairment, and that was all wrong. So it's more about forgetting. And the most valuable thing that I find in coaching participants about listening is don't listen for a sound. Just listen to the place, right? To take it all in. And it would be important as a travel leader, to give people permission not to make it into anything, right? And when you hear a bird, one of the things that I am constantly asked is, what bird is that? And I say, and I might even know, but I just say, let's call him George. Okay? Because why do we want to even start dividing the natural world up with words? Some of the smallest muscles and bones in the human body are in the ear, the 3-bone ossicular chain. Okay? And even something as simple as a stressful thought or a cup of coffee is enough tension that you'll actually, there are over 200 autotoxic drugs, including ibuprofen, that are going to impair your hearing. So, John Muir describes the faintest sound audible to the human ear is the falling of the sequoia seed on thinly crusted snow when the ear is calmly bent. In other words, you only hear it when you're calm, all right? So it's every reason to be calm. Yes, it's inevitable when you're in a strange environment and it's night. it's a spooky experience. Um, what's out there, fear of the unknown, all of that. But it's going to dwindle over 2 to 3 nights. People will become more relaxed. But one of the big things is keep your expectations low of yourself and of others for up to a week. All right, because they're coming from a noisy place. You are what you hear. Before we spoke English, before we spoke Old English, before we spoke anything, our original language was simply emotion. And that is the language that I like to teach my students. Okay? Because as soon as you start adding words, labels to an emotion, you only got part of that emotion. And when you can satisfy yourself with the fact that there is already this language inside of you that is emotion with the sound, with the environment, with the world going on, oh my gosh, then you hardly need to talk with anybody about anything as long as you're in the right place. One of my favorite pieces, it's called Global Sunrise, is because right now there is a planetary tune that has continued to circle the earth from the beginning of life itself, evolving in composition with the evolution of life. And this is the acoustic shadow of the rising sun. And we begin in Australia and then travel through Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. And we do this all in 1 minute. So here we go. Thank.